Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of Day 4 with the man Frank Scalish. Hope everybody is getting geared up for a safe and happy and festive 4th of July. It is July 3rd, 2025. I know you're kind of a holiday guy, Frank. Sometimes we talk about how you got the whole family at the house. Sometimes you travel to see family. What does a 4th of July in the Scalish household look like?
Hopefully very mundane this year. All the kids are coming after the 4th of July. So they'll be funneling in around the 11th, 12th, all for about a week and a half. So we'll have a lot of people here. Rosie will be home with her boyfriend. Josh will be here with his girlfriend. Of course, Frankie and Kelsey and Noah and Sydney and
Frankie's actually taking a day off of fishing across America to come celebrate the 4th of July with Pops.
Not if he could help it. No, he's going to not be home for the 4th of July. He's actually fishing right now, actually, too.
He's been on a bender, so to speak.
Good for him, man. I kind of miss those days where you just go and go.
Yeah.
But I mean,
he was getting a lake dialed in Alabama for no other reason than to just simply get a lake dialed in. Like no tournament coming up, nothing. He's like, day 4, we're approaching the largemouth bite.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, what's he fishing at? Nothing, man. I just want to see how long it takes me to get it dialed in.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta take advantage of it when you got it. You know what I mean? And so he is, and that's pretty cute. It's cool. Yeah, he's on a huge bender, Justin.
Yeah. Do you have? Are you guys a big like fireworks? Like you growing up, and then like with the kids growing up, like do you do the stop by the side of the road and buy some sparklers and whiz bangs and whatever?
No, not really. We didn't. Not really. I mean, when I was a kid, I was, I would do it myself, which I don't recommend to children. But it's a different time and era back then.
Mm-hmm.
I like the 4th of July, but it's not like my big thing.
Have you ever gone bass fishing on the 4th of July, Frank?
You go bass fishing on a holiday in Ohio and you could walk from boat to boat.
You know what? We really missed an opportunity here. I feel like a live stream of you going to your favorite, most popular lake on the 4th of July and then trying to launch at about 10 a.m. and fish until 5 p.m. by yourself.
4:30. Yeah. Fish until 4:30.
And it's just a continuous live stream. I feel like we would break every Day 4 record that has ever been as far as views, comments, and shares.
Oh my God, dude. It would be, I fished one time with my father during the air show in Cleveland, and it's usually this time of year, and holy crap, dude. The ramps were full. The lines to get in the ramps were ridiculous. And leaving was the worst because nobody
no one knew how to get their boat on the trailer.
100%. And I don't want to make fun of pleasure boaters, but come on, guys, come on. You know what I mean? It's like your trailer's too low in the water. Your trailer's too high in the water. You have roller bunks. Hook it up before you pull up. You know what I mean? It's just like, holy smokes. But yeah, no, I don't do the holiday thing, and I try to avoid the weekends. Yeah, that would get 1 million views. I'm not chasing views because I'm not putting myself through that aggravation. There's no possible
that would be so
way.
Phenomenal. Just a little lapel mic attached to a 4K GoPro. Just fire it up and say, I'm Frank Scalish. Like, remember how like Jackass used to do those impossible challenges, like in the movies and stuff? He'd be like, I'm Steve-O, and this is, the shopping cart challenge. And then they'd push him down the hill. You'd be like, I'm Frank Scalish. This is the 4th of July bass fishing challenge.
Yeah, this is the get your boat out of the water in 3 minutes challenge.
That would be
not happening.
The only time that I have ever taken my boat out on either, Labor Day, Memorial Day, or the 4th of July. One of the first years after I had the old Skeeter ZX 190.
With the duct taped on bunks.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I forgot about that. Juice, Jarrett Morrison, Juice, his family had a cabin in at Grand, and he's like, hey, bring your boat down. We'll fish early in the morning, and then we'll just hang out in the afternoons and things like that. And I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds great. It was not great. It was a horrible idea. And so we'd fish in the morning and we caught them. And then we got the bright idea to tie a tube to the cleat and then do a little tubing during the middle of the day. Well, a ZX190 is not made for tubing on Grand on a holiday day.
Nor cleats are not made for pulling a tube.
Yeah, well, that wasn't the issue. What happened was we hit a wake so hard that it disengaged the trolling motor while we were tubing, and then the trolling motor went down and then snapped in half. And that was the only time I've taken it out on a holiday weekend. No, I take that back. We were also on another lake, but it was a trophy bass managed lake, and it literally has a sign that says fishing only. No jet skis, no pleasure boaters, nothing. It's just bass fishing. And the lake is so full of trees and stumps that there's nowhere you can get on pad. So you can't pleasure boat out. I did that one time, but it was so hot in July too.
Oh yeah, dude. I don't like the heat. Just don't like the heat. I could fish in the winter, no problem, all day, no sweat. But when it's 98 degrees out, 99, you got a heat index of 105 or 103. That's miserable. I mean, it's miserable.
It's not ideal.
No, I was out the other day, a few days ago, and oh my gosh, we had like a heat index of 105. And you guys know, I told the story. I was plastering them, and it was not fun. I enjoy catching them, but it was not fun. I freeze water. Here's my summertime trick. I'll freeze like 12 waters, and then I'll put a half a dozen unfrozen water on top of the 12 frozen waters, and then I'll pull a frozen one out and I'll set it on the boat, and it gradually thaws out. And so then I always have cold water to drink. And then I use the unfrozen ones last. Like it's like the last ditch effort. If I'm out of frozen water, I'll use the unfrozen ones. And it's just like a nonstop funneling of water into your system, and all you do is just sweat. It's like, and it was so hot that if your line touched one of your like on my boat, I got those rod locks. They're metal rod locks.
Oh yeah, those are the things that'll burn your ass so quick.
Oh dude, so swear to God, dude, it was like the rod laid on one, the line melted, and then
oh my gosh,
and then you got to retie it, and then I inadvertently knelt on one.
Oh yeah, it's like a hot coal.
Oh, it's like being branded. It's exactly like being branded. And so, I got this little half moon and a key ring on my knee, and it's like, I just hate the heat. And I don't know why. I fished in it my whole life, especially in Bassmasters. The hottest tournament I fished in was on Kentucky Lake. It was a fish formula tournament. One day was 102, the other day was like 109, and the last day was 112. And it was, me and my buddy Troy must have jumped in the lake 20 times while we were fishing that day because it was so hot.
Yeah. Speaking of talking about fishing, we actually had a little bit of a pre-show meeting today, Frank.
Yeah,
and
we did.
I'm pretty pumped to get into this because this is a topic that was brought about by one of the Day 4 listeners, one of those topics that you said, oh, I like that, made a note in the Frank Scalish notebook, and we're bringing it out today.
Yeah, he did a locker room with me, and it was a novel. what he sent me, and there was a lot of information in it. So I just picked apart certain how do you do this or how do you do that, put them in some kind of chronological order, and basically what I'm trying to think of a description for this show, but I think what the description to the show is, how do we build and adjust a rod and lure lineup for pre-fishing and for game day?
Yeah.
Is that too long? That's a long title.
Scott's gonna have a difficult time putting that title into the list.
Yeah, so it's a big title. So we'll just say
dialing it in.
Yeah, we'll call it dialing it in. Ooh, I like that. Dialing it in. So to get started, all right, practice is a completely different thing than the tournament day. Because you're not 100% sure where you're going in practice. So before I get to the lake, the first thing I'm going to do, because I want to pre-rig stuff before I leave, so I'm ready to go when I get there. So for practicing, I'm going to take seasonal pattern, because that's going to narrow you down. And then I'm going to take what I know about the lake that time of year. That's going to narrow you down. And that's how I'm going to make my choices to start practicing. As you start to pre-fish, you start to narrow things down based on what the bass are telling you. So the rods on your deck at that point to go to tournament day, it's really kind of simple, because it's what you actually figured out in practice. That's going to be your starting lineup. But there's rods in the rod locker that I also rig for tournament day. They're going to be possible scenarios, things that might happen, or maybe I got bit on once or twice on this lure, and it could be a thing, but not. So that's going to be rigged in the rod locker. And then, of course, you're going to have, your backups for possible changes, depending on what you're doing. Let's say you're flipping a jig or something, or you're flipping and you're fishing shallow water and you're catching them flipping. Your possible backup for that might be a buzzbait or a frog or a horny toad or something of that magnitude. But in my rod locker during tournament day, I'm going to have 2 to 3 backups of exactly my pattern rods that I'm fishing. In case you blow a reel up or something, you don't have to monkey with it. Just throw it in the box, pull another one out, and you're good to go. That was kind of the beginning stages of this. And then the other question came up, well, when do you commit to just 3 or 4 rods? Well, when I'm committing to 3 or 4 rods, I am super, super dialed in. Like, there's nothing that's going to stop me, and there's nothing changing. So, but it's all about the bite and the pattern. So when you're hyper dialed in, the pattern is very specific. The cover you're fishing is very specific. The structure is very specific. The bite and the location are extremely specific. That's when you are down to 3, 4 rods, and you are hyper focused. Matt, you had a tournament one time on Neely Henry, where is probably a great example of being hyper dialed in. So all right. So
yeah, we were talking about this beforehand about deals, and it was one of those where it was a tough bite and I had a limited practice, but it was very apparent to me that I had 2 specific bites. One was I could catch some fish on a drop shot with a pink worm, and then the other was an RC 0.5 crankbait, so a little itty bitty crankbait, and you could go hours without getting bit. But every time I got close to riprap in the bottom end of the lake that made a point and they were pulling current, I knew without a shadow of a doubt 100% that I was going to make a cast. Not 100%. I'd say 50% chance that I was going to make a cast, where I'd go 45 minutes without a bite. I'd go, there should be one right there. And I knew they were feeding on little itty bitty shad because you could see them flicking on the surface. And I did it 4 or 5 times. And I said, holy cow, like this is the deal. It was really tough to get bid on it. And I ended up making the final day cut in that. I think I finished 11th in that tournament, but I did it on a drop shot and I had 3 different RC 0.5s tied on. I actually had an H2O Express and a 0.5, and that's what I would throw up shallow in case I broke it off because the RCs you couldn't get. And then I had an RC and then a deep RC 0.5. And I knew going into the day that there were 3 baits that I was going to throw the entire day. And then I basically didn't have anything else out after, that very first in the morning.
Right. So basically you had 3 crankbaits and a drop shot out.
Yep. But they were all the same crankbait, same size, everything. And then I was keying on the exact same stuff with all of them.
Right. That's being hyper dialed. You know what I mean? I get hyper dialed when I'm offshore and I got, 3 crankbait rods and 2 Carolina rigs out and nothing else. And nothing else will come out. You know what I mean? That's being like totally just narrowed in on.
Like, that you're fishing the best pattern available on the lake with a bait that A, you're comfortable with, and B, you feel like is the best bait on the lake at that time. That's when you're saying dialed. You're on the best pattern with the best bait in the best spot.
Right. And here's the cool thing, okay? You're catching fish, so you know what you're doing is working.
Yep.
You're not going for a half a day with 1 bite. You're every time you get to the right stuff, you're catching one. That's when everything's clicking and everything is working. And on that, the other thing is, what do you rig when practice conditions are insanely different than tournament day? That's probably the biggest. I don't want to say an issue, but the biggest adjustments you're going to have to make. There's other adjustments too that happen on the water. I'll give you a minor adjustment. So I was fishing a team tournament with a buddy of mine, and all of our fish were in practice were on Carolina rigs, and in the tournament were on Carolina rigs. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. 6-inch lizard.
It was going down on a Carolina rig.
It's right, and we're catching them. And we started the morning out just plowing them. The problem was the size wasn't there anymore. We were catching a lot of smaller fish, 1.5 pounds, 1.75 pounds, 2 pounders. Where in practice we had locked into some good ones. So we had a decent limit, but it was totally not a winning limit. We went to our last spot. We literally had minutes to fish. We could see the weigh-in site from where we were at, but it was probably a 1/4 mile, maybe not even away. So we pull up on there. I make the cast, and I got it's a channel ledge, rock, and it's got 4 big stumps right on the corner, right on the break. So I fire the Carolina rig out there. I get into the stumps on the rock. I'm bringing it through. It falls off the ledge. I don't get anything. And I'm reeling it in at 100 miles an hour to go make another cast. And a 3.5, 4 pounders running it down at the side of the boat. I killed the rod. The fish went on to the lizard, but I missed them. I threw the rod in the bottom of the boat, picked up a fat-free 7, fired a fat-free 7 out there, and in 6 casts, I called every single fish, and we won the event. And that was the adjustment, because I saw the behavior of the bigger bass chasing that bait. And I told my buddy, I said, dude, if we would have made this adjustment earlier today, there's no telling what we could have caught. That's adjusting on the fly. That's adjusting by what the bass are telling you. But the problem when the weather conditions and everything changes from practice, that's tough, because there's really no rules on this. You got to really think on your feet, and you have to base this on what you're given with the conditions. I potlucked an FLW event on Champlain, and because we were up there for Bassmasters and they had the tour event there, so I just jumped in it just to fish it. Practice was like a mirage. There wasn't a breath of air flowing. The lake was so slick flat, it like looked like a mirror when you were running down the lake. It was so flat. And I wound up catching all my fish on flick shakes and drop shots on the outside grass edges on not, I won't say rock mounds, but where the grass meets the rock. And they were kind of milling around in these places, and some of them were pretty big, but there was 0, 0, 0 wind. So I could launch a flick shake out there and let it go down. Half the time the bait never touched the bottom. Then I got them. And then to get tighter, I'd throw the drop shot out there. And so it was real easy fishing, and they were good fish and everything. So I was kind of excited because there are times when you really don't want to deal with sloppy weather. And especially on lakes that can get big and nasty. So I was like grooving on it. Guys were struggling to catch fish. I'll be honest with you. But the technique that I was using was just so super finessey. And I was really dialed in on what I was looking for. And I had a bunch of places. Well, we wake up in the morning for the tournament, and we're in a marina getting ready to go. And there's the water's going up and down in the marina like 3 feet. Like I'm literally getting seasick sitting in my boat in the marina.
That's weird.
Yeah. The marina would rise and go down, rise and go down. That's because the way the wind was blowing, the waves were rolling into the bay. And it was moving so much water that the water inside the marina was doing that. So I'm like, there ain't no way. They're never letting us go. The flags were standing, ripping straight out. I go, they ain't never letting us go. This day's canceled. And sure enough, they let us go. And
back in the day.
Yeah, back in the day. And I get out there, and when I say we were battling waves, like this is no lie. Like this was like Lake Erie kind of waves. The only good thing is it was blowing right down the pipe, so they were kind of going in a line. So I took my time. I got to where I had to go. You couldn't throw a flick shake if you wanted to throw a flick shake. You couldn't throw one. The wind and the waves were so big where I was fishing that all that finesse stuff went to the wayside. So I pulled out 2 Carolina rigs. No lie. I pulled out 2 Carolina rigs and my drift sock. And the dude in the boat with me goes, "What the heck are we going to do, man?" I go, "We're going to throw the drift sock out. We're going to Carolina rig this. We're going to cast it, the stuff when we could cast at it. When we can't cast at it, we're going to let the boat go, and we're going to drag over it." And that's what we wound up doing, which was 1,000% completely not what I had done in practice. And I walked out of there with $10,000 in my pocket. And we slaughtered them. We absolutely demolished them. So that's, that's what happens. When you use your head, the bass aren't going away. They were deep enough to stay put. I just needed to make the adjustment that would give me that opportunity to catch those fish. And literally I had my Carolina rods rigged because they're always rigged in my boat. But for the most part, I had 2 flick shakes and 2 drop shots. And that's, I was going to catch them.
All right. We're going to talk about this because Northeast Bass, not ripping on you personally. This is just a question. You said FFS clowns don't know any of that. They just point and shoot. I would like to draw your attention to 2 gold medals and the big bass up there. I told you I'm talking about it every day until something bigger happens.
You're doing good. So far,
the exact same thing that you're talking about takes place on forward facing as well.
It does.
And are there times where literally the pattern is you go out in the middle and you cast a suspended fish, and a trained monkey could catch them if you duct taped a spinning rod in their hands, and as soon as they see it hit the water, they go, oh my God, I'm eating that, and I'm eating it before my buddy does? Yes, there are. Just like there are times where you just go down a random bank and it's just goes.
Right.
But the same nuances, the same patterns, the same getting dialed in exactly happens with forward-facing sonar. And I would say down on El Chichillo in Mexico, you could go just about anywhere and catch fish, regardless of what you were doing, whether you have forward-facing or whether you don't. But most people had scope there. So then it was exactly what you were talking about, getting dialed in. Whether it was a little minnow or a big minnow, whether it was rock structure that were humps and rock piles, or whether it was channel swings, whether the fish were on boulders, whether they were sucked down onto the bottom, whether they were in schools, whether they were single, whether there was bait present, whether there wasn't. And by the end of practice, Andrew and I were so dialed in that we could look at the map, look at a spot in the tournament and say, I don't know how we missed that in practice, but we'll catch it. We'll catch a 7-pounder here because we had the minnow, we had the pattern, we had their location, we knew where the big ones weren't, we knew where the big ones were, and we had it completely dialed in. Now, could we have caught those fish without forward-facing sonar? Probably 1 or 2 instead of 20.
Yeah, right.
But it's the exact same thing. And that's why we won with 66 pounds and didn't with 30, 40, 50, because we got it dialed in. We understood it. We had the right baits. We were making the right decisions, and it wasn't a point and shoot. If it was just a point and shoot, then everybody would tie because it would just be whoever got lucky and caught the biggest one. But it was the exact same as far as getting it dialed in. And Frank just bounced. I think Frank had a computer issue. I would assume something happened. That was weird.
Yeah, something very weird happened is right, man.
That was on your end, I think. Anyway, I was
super dialed in, point and shoot.
Yeah.
If everyone did it right.
I think he was being I think maybe he was being maybe he was joking when he said it like that. Like FFS clowns don't know any of that. They just point and shoot. Maybe he's like saying that tongue in cheek.
Maybe.
I think maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, then he said, don't get defensive.
No, it's not. But there was laughter.
I'm not getting defensive. I'm just saying it's different style, but it's exactly what you're talking about can be applied to a topwater bank, a crankbait bank, an offshore Carolina rig, or a forward-facing pattern.
Well, because it's fishing. At the end of the day, it's fishing, and that's what happens when you're fishing. Right. It's all about controlling your variables. And
I you said yes, tongue in cheek.
Beautiful. No harm, no foul. Northeast.
But I'm just saying that drives me nuts because especially in a forward-facing era where nuances and we're being exceptionally dialed in is even more important than it ever has been in the past. That's where this is important.
Yeah, I would say always being super dialed in is very important, no matter if you're live scoping or traditionally fishing. Mm-hmm. The more dialed in you are, the more you catch, the bigger ones you catch.
But I would say forward facing, I will admit this, it is easier to get dialed in on forward facing.
Well, because you could see it. You could see it unfold.
Because you can tell whether you're fishing for in most cases. But I think that being dialed, capital D-I-A-L-E-D, capital dialed in is more important because there are more percentage of anglers, especially if you're tournament fishing, that are around the caliber of fish that can find the fish that are in an area that they can win at. And it's that minute, dialed in extra detail that gives you the extra couple pounds or the extra couple bites that the guys who are just there because they know there's fish in the area aren't getting.
Yeah, 100%. That's the importance of it, because you're getting a better quality bite and you're getting a more consistent, better quality bite.
Yeah.
That's the most important part. Now, the biggest problem, and probably something that aggravates me, is how do you make how do you figure out what your rod lineups are going to be when you're not dialed in on anything specific at all.
Yeah. Okay.
That
happens to everybody.
Oh, heck yeah. This is the quintessential junk fishing. When you're catching a bass here and a bass there, a few bass on this, a few bass on that, multiple different presentations. It seems really random. Yeah, it's so mandatory. It is mandatory.
That's Joe. He's been cracking him up there on Oneida. I have FOMO, fear of missing out, so bad. We watch Thousand Islands, Oneida, St. Clair.
I
mean, like, I almost have to, there's like a month-long period where I almost have to block about a quarter of my Instagram followers just I don't get my chest gets tight. I'm like, why am I? Oh my God. Yeah. Maybe I could fit a trip in up. I can't believe I'm not going to go there this year. I've only got probably 35 to 40 summers left. What the hell am I doing in Oklahoma?
Yeah, anyway, exactly.
Continue.
Exactly.
Keep going. Sorry, I didn't mean to get you off course.
I'm not off course.
But Joe's been giving me mad FOMO. I know him, and he got Frankie he got Frankie up there. That he does the video of the, hey guys, Joe LaBarber here. Here's a 6-pounder. Block.
Look at this small.
Yeah, until you're back down south.
Yeah, exactly. Have fun in the 900.
All right, back to it. Sorry, we're getting. Where do you start when you're zero dialed?
Right. So it seems really random because you're doing this and you're doing that and you're doing this. But is it really random? Because here's what happens if you look at a junk pattern. The bass you're catching, they're doing different things based on the cover changes and the structural changes in the areas that you're fishing. So, for example, you might be flipping boat docks, right? And then you come to a small rocky point that's around the corner from the boat dock. And then you pick up a crankbait and you catch one on a crankbait, right? But you're still catching them. You're still catching them some on boat docks. It seems random, but you use the right bait for the right presentation and the right cover, and your chances of catching one there go up, they go up greatly. So you have to remember changes in structure, cover, and bass location. This stuff isn't random. Your pattern might not be dialed in, but you can still catch bass putting a bait in the right place, and the right bait in the right place. It's like broken grass with top waters and spinner baits, and then all of a sudden you're catching some here and some there on a top water and a spinner bait in the broken grass, and there's a little clump of a mat. So you pull out your punch rod, you punch down the middle, boom, you catch one. It seems random, but it's not random because that the likelihood of a bass being there is probably pretty good. And so that's what happens with these slop patterns. Now you're putting rods on your deck. So when you come up to something certain, you have that rod application at the ready. So you're not diving and digging through the rod locker. So this is the best way to approach it. And here, I'm going to be honest with you guys, as worst as I can be honest with you. If I've got 10 or 12 rods out, I'm 3 seconds from spinning out because I can't stand that. It's too haphazard for me. So what I found is when I'm junk fishing, and there are times when you just flat have to. When I'm junk fishing, I take like rods and I put them on one side of the boat. So let's say I got my fast moving baits, my cranks, my chatter baits, my spinner baits, they're on one side of the box, on one side of the boat. And then I take my slow presentations, drop shot, flip in, Carolina rig on the other side. Yep. And this way, at least what happens then is you're not digging through rods to get a rod that has a completely different application to it, because that on one side you're going to have these ones, on the other side you're going to have these ones, so you don't get it. Stops you from tangling 50 rods together. It stops you from fighting with yourself to get a rod in time, and you're more efficient that way.
You know how I know I'm about it's funny you say that because I do where you're going with that. So you said when you're that's your sign when you're about 3 seconds from spinning out is you
Oh,
got
yeah.
12 rods out. My sign is when I go to pick up a rod and it's tangled with another rod, and instead of just calmly laying it down and just playing with the tip for 5 seconds, I just tape it and just violently start thrashing it and immediately dog cussing all of the rods. That's how I know that I am on the verge. Like when I pick it up, the first thing I'll say is, how in the blankety blank does this rod get so blanking tangled when I just set the blanker down?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
And then you get it about halfway up and you just do and then you cuss it some more, and then you go and then you cuss it some more, and then when you get it free, you usually have 3 or 4 nicks somewhere along where it's been tangled.
100%.
You feel the nick and you say blanket and make a cast.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, I know I'm on the verge of a complete and total meltdown. And then I know when I'm getting more kind of dialed back in, because I will sit down and I will take the 10 rods that I have not and will not use, and we'll quietly just wrap them up, put a sleeve on, and toss them in the box.
Yeah.
But until then, total chaos.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, that's like if there's like a meter that's rising, like, I mean, when it gets up to the red, that's when that stuff starts happening.
Yeah, 100%. I'm a very like, I have a hard time, to be honest with you. Like, I have a hard time fishing out of someone else's boat. My stuff is so dialed in and so organized. My biggest fear is having to fish out of someone else's boat, because
you do a good job with fishing out of my boat.
But we keep it pretty simple, man.
Yeah. We're also, we haven't really had a deal where there might be 3 or 4 things going on. It's tie one bait on, go cast, catch, count, and mount, return home, drink Coors Light.
100%. I mean, we're pretty fortunate, but that's also seasonal pattern. I hate to say it, but when you're in the heart of like wintertime fishing, you don't need a lot of choice.
Anyway, you were talking about how you knew you were talking about how you're about for Meltdown. So sorry, I didn't mean to throw you off base there. That's what I was laughing at about.
No, you're actually good. There's kind of no real way to end this segment, because we could go on for hours cherry picking little nuances of the whole game. But the thing about it is, if you have to sloppy junk fish, you have to be completely organized. And then what happens during the day on a junk fishing venture, you will find that there is going to be a few rods that you almost never pick up. Put them up, put them back in the rod locker, because the less clutter you have, the psychologically you feel like you're getting more dialed in, and you fish smarter, harder, and you fish better with that. And it's a trick. You're just tricking yourself. You're still not dialed in, but it feels like you're getting dialed in. And then you got to realize too, patterns start to change sometimes by the minute. We know they could change from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. And sometimes they're changing throughout the day. And so what winds up happening is if you put a video camera on your boat, you would see how many times you're in the rod locker and out of the rod locker, getting a rod, changing a rod.
I never even thought about that.
It would be really wild to see that, because you're working on your subconscious. You're recognizing changes. So now you have to go get something else out. You got to do this. You got to do that. And that's actually healthy as a fisherman, because you're thinking on your feet, you're making the adjustments, you're not agonizing over them, you're not fighting yourself over them. It's flowing smooth. And so I'll never hesitate to open the rod locker and yank a rod out. If I think I need to put it out there, it's out. Because if it comes in my head, and, oh gosh,
just keep going.
Because if the thought comes in my head that this might be changing, this pattern might be changing, it probably is. The only reason I say that is because of the experience and time on the water. Because a lot of things happen, like when you're driving down the street, do you have to think to turn your turn signal on? You don't. You just hit it. It's no longer a thought. But when you're 15 and a half years old and you're trying to do your driving, you have to think, oh my gosh, left turn, kink, 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 kink. as the more time on the water, the less time you have to think about, these other things. You start to really get into adjusting.
That's a great point. All I was laughing at is the precursor to the total meltdown of the rod tangled is when things aren't going your way and you start pulling the rods out and one of those rods gets tangled in the handle. Like you're getting, like, let's say you're not planning on throwing a jerk bait, but you think you're going to flip more. So you've got your flipping stuff on the top row, and then you got your jerk bait. That's how it sets up and I put it in order of how much I think I'm going to use it.
100%.
So then you go to get the bottom rod out and the handle tangles with the line between the reel and the first guide of the next rod.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you didn't want to dig it. Like that was your emergency row. Like you don't want to be that low in the rod box pulling that stuff out. I can't tell you how many times I've just gone and just broke that line on the rod. It's like that. Or how often I've done that and I've just said, that's the universe telling me I don't want to throw this, and I just jam it back. And I mean, it doesn't matter. For some reason, those rods have the ability to get tangled up with the handles inside I don't know how it happens, but it's like there's a little rod locker elf that's in there that's like, oh yeah, watch this. We're gonna get him here. He's gonna reach for the old jerk bait. He's just watched this meltdown.
Yeah, no doubt.
Oh, this is a very triggering show right now. This section.
I know, it's so true though.
And then I'm like, what happened to this eye?
Yeah,
how did this eye get ripped out of the rod?
I bet my non-boaters stepped
on it. Co-angler stepped on it.
Yeah, 100%. It's never your fault. It's always someone else's fault. Yeah, I've actually had moments in the boat where I literally just sat down, took a deep breath, looked at my front deck, and went, okay, we're starting over. And I literally start over. And it turns out that it's good. It's centering, gets you back on track. You're not wasting too much time. You're probably wasting less time doing that than fighting all the aggravations all day. Mm-hmm. And I've done that a bunch of times. And then lo and behold, as the day progresses, you find out as you're not using one rod, you're putting it away and not using another one. The next thing you know, you're at the end of the day, you got 6 rods on your boat, and life is good. And then you get home and you're like, oh, that was a pretty good day. You know what I mean? Instead of, but I know what you mean. My biggest pet peeve is when I reach in that rod locker, dude, and there's 3 of them stuck together, and it's like,
mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you ever do that where you just go, you like step back, take a deep, this is how you know I'm about, you go, that's how I do it. Like, I mean, I could just feel the tension building in my body.
Oh yeah.
And it never happens when you're in a flow state. It never happens when you're catching.
No,
it's always like when you see a fish bust and you're like, ooh, top water, I've got that ready. And then you go get it. And like I said, that little elf is in there and he's like, let's see if we can put a number 4 Gamakatsu treble hook through the eyelet of your casting reel. And you're sitting there and things like that. I mean, you're ready to just javelin that thing out into the middle of the lake.
Exactly. Or that stupid hook gets on the hook keeper of another rod.
Oh yeah.
It's like, how did that happen? It's impossible.
Yep. Or how many times have you ever been team fishing and you both reel in, like you're like, oh, sorry, I got you. And you like reel in, which happens every time. And it's like, there's a freaking Eagle Scout down there, like tying a quadruple square knot. And you're like, we just cast on top of each other. Like, how are there 9 wraps and 3 overhands in between our 2 lines? And there's always one guy in the boat that's like, hey, I got it. Don't worry. Give me a little slack.
Yeah.
And you give it the slack and he's doing with it. And you're like, you getting it? And then there's this times where you just go, F it, and you just take the scissors and cut your own line, let them have it back, and then you re-rig. The guy's always like, you didn't have to do that. And you're like, yes, I did, for my own sanity.
Yeah, how about this?
Yeah.
This is going to be great. This is going to be so good, man. Wait a second. This is gonna be so good. This is when you know you're having a day. Oh gosh, I can't say this is how you know your day has just gotten really different. So you're talking about tangling up with somebody, right? So,
Yeah.
and you know how it is. You breathe. You don't want to get
Mhm.
frustrated, but you're
You
frustrated.
open your bail or push the button, you let them mess with it. You don't try to
And
go,
you
unless
just
you've got the guy over your shoulder going, it's the other way. It's the other way. It's the other way. And you're
right.
going, is it? Is it?
Right. This is what you're.
Bill?
This
You
is
know?
what. This is what. This is when you know the day got wrong. After you untangle the madness and you see this on your
Yeah.
line.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, this thing right
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
And you know that line right
And you
there is
still make a cast.
100%, and you know it's worthless. And the first time you get a bump and set the hook, it's gone. And you're like, when you throw it out there anyway, and you go do your
Yeah.
thing.
And then those are the
Uh,
ones where you reel in and you have about 15 feet of tag end, and then you do the bull whip where you go blank, blank, and
yeah,
then you just toss the rod down.
100%. But
Dude,
that
we
is so.
just described. And it's usually
Uh,
with like your buddy who like that you're not like traumatizing for life from fishing.
oh yeah, 100%. Because if it happens with a non-boater, you're 1,000 times more patient.
Yeah, and
You're a
you're kind of an
thousand
asshole
times
because that guy's not you guys aren't intentionally doing it.
correct. But if it's
But
your
like, me and Juice in the boat and
oh
Juice
yeah,
casts over it, like
oh
you
yeah,
blockhead.
yeah, you'll lay them out.
Yeah. Go sit in the back. Your butt. He's like, but it's my boat.
You're
Like, I don't care.
grounded.
Go sit in the
Right?
back of your own boat, Juice.
You're right. You're grounded. You're grounded. Oh
I
my
told him
gosh.
once, I said, why don't you sit down and watch me fish until you learn how to set the hook like a real man? and then I kid you not, 2 casts later, I broke off like a 6. And he like was back there. And I was, why are you sitting? Then I'm like, there's one. Crack, whoop, nothing. And he's like, oh, real smooth there. How about that one? Why don't you sit down until you learn how to tie a knot like a real man?
Yeah, but that's what fishing with friends is all about.
Oh, yeah.
That's what it's all about right there, man.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, that is
Dude,
so
I
fun.
am that kind of triggered me onto some because it's a very similar path to destruction.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Without a doubt.
Have you ever had it where like you're sitting there, like I've done this by myself already a long time, where it's just not going well. You have one of those where you get everything perfectly rigged, you literally flip out, you go to work it and you're like, I'm stuck again.
Yes.
Like you didn't even move it. Like you're dialed in. You're like, and you hadn't gotten snagged for like an hour before that. And you're like, are you kidding? And you can't get to it or it's wavy or something. You break it off. And then like I said, that freaking anger just starts building.
Oh
And then
yeah.
before you know it, you look around and you've got 6 rods and 5 of them are just tag ends
Yeah.
flopping around. And you're like, what in the hell just happened to the last 30 minutes?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I can't stand that. I'm really meticulous with my jigs, and I trim them up all real nice. I make them all look really pretty, and and then when they get all, especially
Mhm.
if you're catching a lot of fish on them, the skirts start to get torn up, and the paint comes off the heads and the whole 9 yards, and the weed guard's getting kind of funky, and I'm like, oh, cut it off. I got another one, and I get it all perfect. And then you go with the flip, and it gets in there, and you go, and you just literally just put it on.
Yeah. And the first couple you like wiggle and you try to go up and get, and then it gets to the point where like you just realize it's snag. And typically that's when if you're with someone, your buddy goes, no, we'll go get it. Don't worry. You're too late. And you just start walking backwards in the boat. And the most satisfying moment is when you just break it off. We break 25 off like you're Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Until that thing comes ricocheting out of the rocks and puts a freaking hole in your arm.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that is funny.
I think it's pretty universal. I don't know. I mean, I see a couple people. Maybe we're just psychopaths.
It could be. I mean, who knows, man? I like I have some buddies that just don't care.
When you're dialed in, it doesn't matter. It's when you're not dialed in, like you said, you're trying to get dialed in. Basically, the whole show was to avoid getting to the point that we just talked about for the last 10 minutes.
Right, which is why we ended the episode not the episode, but we ended the talking point with this frustration.
The line is so funny. That line. Show that picture again of the like, you've reached it when that's what up a little bit. Yeah, that's what it looks like. The old Charlie Brown right there.
Oh yeah.
And you still just sling one out there.
You're like, I care not. I'll retie tomorrow. How many times have you said that?
Numerous times. I have. I've done it so many times on a spinning rod where I like get a bite and I hook it and I'm like, crap, I know I have 6. It's typical. I mean, like if it's big money on the line, I'll do it even if it means I only have 2 minutes. I will not fish with no nicks in my line in a big tournament. When money's on the line, when there's points, anything like that. Right. But like I've done it so many times where I'm just like, I don't really care. And then you hook one and you're like, oh, I should have retied. And now you're babying it. Like you have no idea whether that's 2-pound breaking strength or 8-pound breaking strength.
You have no idea. All you know is it's compromised in a big fluffy way. I'll tell you what I did recently. When I say recently, probably one of the last 2 times I was out.
Dennis Miller just reserves 30 minutes of every day on the water just for a meltdown.
That's beautiful.
He says there's always 30 minutes of a blank show every day with me. He just knows he launches the boat, he's going to lose about a half hour to a meltdown.
That is so good. So, okay. So when I attach my braid to my fluoro, I use the FG knot. I absolutely use the FG knot. And it was so hot the last I was fishing, I was tying one up. And when you do an FG knot, when it's good. Like it looks, what it looks like. It is nice. Mm-hmm. I tie this knot and I'm like, I got a loop in it. There's a little loop in it. I can't get it tight. The whole 9 yards. And I go, I don't really care. I'm fishing it anyway. And sure enough, I'm fishing it. I get a little hang up and I'm shaking it to try and get it out. All of a sudden it goes, and I unraveled. It unraveled, and all I got is my braid. I'm like, oh my god! Now I got to do it again. I didn't even tie it. I just threw it in the rod lock. I'm like, I won't throw that.
Okay, so one more thing that'll send me into a tailspin is, and it's typically around fishing docks. One of the guys said, when you cast around the corner and you cast over the cat fisherman's line. And they're, they give you you could be anywhere in the damn lake. Why are you here? But what's worse to me is this happens all the time in Oklahoma because there's so much timber and rock and stuff, is when you get your crankbait or your jig, your chatterbait, your plug stuck in someone else's old line and that they cut it with scissors instead of like as bass fishermen, like we don't leave.
I don't
50 yards of line that are stuck between 9 stumps. And then you get it in and it's like either 80-pound braid or 60-pound fluorescent green big game.
Yeah.
And it's the worst is it's a little bit windy. You're going with the wind. It's a plug that you're catching them on. And you can see this kind of mossy line underneath that you're stuck on, but you can see your bait. But you're just out of reach, and it's like 60-pound big game that some schmuck who hasn't caught a fish in 7 years took a pair of freaking kitchen scissors and cut it off because he didn't know how to get his snag out. And now your plug is in jeopardy because this idiot didn't know how to get his snag out. And it's like you can kind of move it, but you don't want to break it up. And then you're like down there and you're with the scissors and you're dangerously close. Like you're always that moment where you're like, okay, if I'm a 1/4 inch to the right, now I've got a hook buried past the barb that's attached 3 feet down. to some old line or trot line on the bottom, and now we're in a real pickle. And that's usually when your trolling motor slamming into the rocks, and it's just some schmuck who doesn't know how to get a snag out.
Oh yeah, dude. I pick up more line in the lakes that I can't even believe it. I don't mean like 10 feet of line. I mean, like, I've literally reeled in 100 yards. You know, you got a ball.
It's like they just take it and go, I'm snagged, and then they just cut their line.
I think honestly, I think what it is, I think guys are trolling.
Not in Oklahoma. There ain't no one trolling in Oklahoma where this is going down, but up where you are, absolutely.
But I don't understand.
You think they're trolling and they get spooled?
I think they're trolling. They got gobs of line out, and then they break it off, and because I've literally, like, I got snagged on this one lake on line, and I started pulling it in. And when I start to pull it in, then I want to get all of it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it literally took me like 100 yards from where I actually snagged it to where it ended. And when it ended, it was like a giant egg sinker and a, live bait hook.
Okay.
And I'm like, yeah.
But you have to get the line out. Like, if you can get excess line or trash out, not only is it good for the environment, but that is the fishing gods and good juju. Just like I had an incident recently. Like, if a buddy calls and you're planning on going fishing with him, and you're out there catching him, and he calls and says, "Come pick me up," it's bad karma to say, okay, we'll be right there, and then to keep catching them, even though that's what you want to do. Like, I think the right, like you will be repaid. And listen, I say the fishing god, it's karma, energy, whatever you want to do with you will be repaid by putting that rod down, even though you want to leave your buddy on the bank for the next 6 hours, and say, screw him, going and picking him up, and then coming back, even if the bite dies. Like, there's somewhere in the universe where that will pay you back.
Oh yeah, 100%. I have a very close friend of mine, and I ran into him at a lake on my way to another lake. And actually, I didn't run into him. He called me and asked me where I was at, and I said, I'm headed down that way. And he said, stop and see me. I'm at this boat ramp. And I said, okay. So I go stop and see him, and we exchanged, we talked about a lot of different things, and he was looking at a boat and everything. And so we talked about the boat and everything. And I said, hey, I'm going over here to this lake. I said, give me a holler when you're done over here. If you're not going to stay out all day, give me a holler. If I'm still fishing, let's make a few casts together. He said, yeah, okay, no problem. So I'm out fishing, and it happened to be in a spring, and I've got a lot of bass on beds located, smallies on beds located, and a bunch of largemouth. And he called. He said, hey, I'm done with that guy. I'm going to swing by, but I only got about an hour. I said, cool, come on, call me when you get to the boat ramp. So he calls me. I go there. I literally just handed him a rod and said, come on, I got some fish for you. And let him go out and pluck all the sight ones that I got. I let him have all the smallmouth. I took the largemouth. And it was
Jeffrey's
fun.
Got so pissed at me one time because we were in separate boats, and I found a group of bedding fish, and I caught them, and then I called him and told him about it. And he's like, I'm on my way. And I said, oh, no, I already caught him. And he was not a happy camper. It's like, you know how much I like bed fishing. Why did you call me after you found him and leave a couple for me? It's like, oh, no, I just got caught up in the moment, and I found him, so I caught him. And
well, yeah,
let you know that where they were, like hey, like you can go look for some.
Yeah, exactly.
I almost lost my job like less than a year in. We were on Texoma in his boat on a 5-pound largemouth, and he missed it, and I quick flipped him. I just thought, hey, we'll alternate pitches.
Right.
No, it was not an alternate pitch deal. It was a watch Mark Jeffries catch bedfish trip. I thought it was, a bonding trip between the intern and the boss. No, it was definitely a watch Mark Jeffries catch bedfish trip, because I learned that real quick after he was re-rigging his craw, and I said, I got her. And he goes, you what? I said, I got her.
How mad was he?
I mean, I didn't know him that well at the time, so I thought he was kind of joking, right? Like, I didn't know he was the one of the top 5 most intense individuals on the planet. Yeah. And I was like, oh yeah, man, like, you fired her up. And he's like, yeah, why do you think I was re-rigging? And I was like, I was like, you gotta be quicker than that. And I was like, you got it. I get it in. And then I realized this guy's legit pissed.
Oh yeah.
I did not catch another fish the rest of that day.
Did you try to?
Oh no. I was trying to keep the job at that point.
You're like, no, you take him. No, you take
we smashed him too. I mean, he had like a 24-pound bag, but that fish was like one of the first ones of the day. I was eager. I wanted to show what I was made of.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And I mean, he swung and missed, and I just quick flipped him. Like, we were both standing on the front deck, and I was just watching. As soon as he swung, he's like, that's how it's gonna be all day? That's how it's gonna be? I said, absolutely not. I said, I'll be on the back deck in the sit-down chair.
I won't even put my sunglasses
with the scale ready.
I won't even put my sunglasses on, sir.
Bedfish. I don't see a bedfish.
Where?
I'm casting out the other side looking for those transition fish.
What contact lenses?
That's a true story.
Oh, that is so funny, man. That is so funny.
Oh my gosh!
I know. What a funny thing. It's so funny what gets us in a boat.
What's also kind of sad is that there's so much that can set us off.
Well, yeah. I mean,
now that we've been talking about it for 20 minutes now.
I swear to God, but the problem is, it's like it never gets like that when you're super smooth dialed in. Mm-hmm. Because everything is working. It's smooth. It's going. You're in the flow. It's working. And nothing is not in sync.
I'm going to show a video of when it's in sync. I'm showing I don't care.
Dude, let's go.
10-pounder I caught with Andrew Upshaw. Have you seen the video of that?
Do it. Just put it up there. We might as well. Why not?
So we talk about, like, we got to end it on a positive note, right?
100%. That is so funny.
The entire day for that whole thing, if you wanna watch it, is out on Scott Martin's YouTube channels now.
Yeah, just go to the fish. Just go to the fish catch and stuff.
Yeah, we're not watching 47 minutes, trust me.
Yeah, good.
Hold on.
I'm not going anywhere unless, you get a storm and it knocks us out of whatever this is called.
No, we're good.
Cyberspace.
Whatever
the hell it's called, internet.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to do entire screen. Head share system audio. This is on Scott Martin's channel. Ready?
Yeah, do it.
I don't know. We might need to weigh them. Here, why don't you just put them in there and I'll get them. Guys, it's been a great day.
So we got dialed in. All right, here it is. This is when you've had a great day. So you put up with all the crap for a moment like this.
It's over here. Out here. You're fine. Yeah, you're good right now.
See, we're working together. He's telling me where the structure is that we had been fishing.
Heart's still racing a million miles. A billion miles.
Keeping me calm, talking me down, making sure that we're working together.
That's the scariest part right there.
Okay.
Oh. Oh my God! Oh God, that's great, dude. So
That's
hey,
like when it works together.
so how that is the scariest moment ever when they go around the front of that trolling motor.
Oh yeah. There's no way. There's nothing good. It's like they know it.
Right, dude. I can't tell you the amount of times that has happened to me, and you're like, how did they get wrapped around that trolling motor?
I want to get your take on this, Frank. So I haven't been filming a lot of the stuff that I fish, but we just did the Jude episode with Adam Bartuzek in it, and then there were 2 of the episodes that went out on Andrew Upshaw's, and then Scott Martin's doing this, and I have noticed, because quite frankly, I've been catching a lot of big fish on a spinning rod this year from
100%.
last December all the way through here. I think I've caught 1, 2, I've caught 3 over 10, probably 7 or 8 9s, bunch of 8s. And it's not because I'm God's gift to spinning rod and minnowing. It's because I've been on fisheries that have big fish. That's you want to catch big fish. The biggest secret is go to lakes that have a lot of big fish in them. You'll look like a hero too. But geez, I don't know if I should post that. That's how Matt's gonna sound on his audio. But what I've noticed is you obviously don't want to reel against the drag, because that causes line twist and defeats the purpose. But I am starting, after watching this, and I've noticed this on these big fish where 1 or 2 tail kicks and they can create a lot of slack in the line and they can move on head shakes. I 100% believe it, and you can watch and you can see that I did it then. There are certain points of the fight where you want to be reeling against the drag, as long as your drag isn't loose. And I have a very tight drag there, but I want to be reeling against the drag to completely eliminate the chance of any slack or bow in my line. So I know that I'm twisting my line. I know that I'm not gaining anything on the fish, but in that moment when that fish is coming up to jump, they're moving so much water and so fast. I want to be reeling against that drag to keep the bow, to keep the tension on that hook, because those fish have such big, hard mouths. When they get to that size, you don't know exactly how you have them caught. Correct. And I've watched me catch 7 or 8 over 7 pounds in this video, and I was subconsciously doing it, but I was reeling against that drag at certain points, and I think that's the correct way to do it.
Well, if you didn't lose them, then it's correct. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because the whole idea is all you have to do is keep the fish coming towards you and keep tension. When the fish turns and runs with the spinning rod, he's going to run. You're not going to stop him from it. But if you keep tension on the fish, you're going to keep with them.
And I trust the drag on the spinning reel. I trust it, endlessly. We talked about that reel. I know a bunch of guys bought some reels over the past week. I've gotten some DMs about it, but it's just, I was always under the assumption of, if you're reeling and it's going, zzz, don't stop reeling. You're not accomplishing anything. But
but
after
then you're
watching Brandon Polinick, after watching some really good guys with spinning reels, Trey McKinney, who's in this one, he's one of the best with it. JT Tompkins, you can watch it. A lot of the really good guys with spinning reels, I originally was like, man, they suck at fighting fish with the spinning. I freaking get it now. They were next level. I'm not saying I'm they're next level yet, but there was a method to the madness to where it seems like it's being counterproductive.
Right, but it's not. It's different, because when you were doing it, I was listening, and it was like neat. But if your drag is singing and you're going and you're your drag is too loose, you're not fighting the fish right, and that's an issue. But see, I tighten my drag down, and then I take the line and I tie the end of the line off to something, and I pull on it, and I just start to loosen the drag till it just goes and then that's where I'm at. It's my drag is like, I call it emergency use only.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But yeah,
I love today's show, Frank. That was educational and entertaining.
It was fun.
I laughed a lot.
Yeah, the meltdown scenario is so real. It's so real, and I'm way better than I used to be. That's all I could tell you.
What is your biggest meltdown on the water? Like if you were to think back over all of your decades on the water, if you were to say, and you don't have to go into great detail, but is there one that stands out where you're like, that one might have been, my Mount Rushmore. That goes on the Mount Rushmore of meltdowns.
Yeah. I had one. It was due to a non-boater, which I won't go into the story.
Okay. I'm just curious if you had
I will
one.
just tell you this. I went in at noon.
I believe if you are a day 4 aficionado, you
Yes.
may have dabbled in that story in the past. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I went in at noon. That's probably the biggest, because I've never done that in a tournament in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I run the risk of being late.
Yeah.
I'm to the last possible cast I can make.
I've gotten to the point where I just get off the water.
Yeah.
If it's not a tournament, I get off the water. You know who taught me that is Dean Rojas.
Yeah.
When you roomed with him, sometimes he would be off the water. Sometimes he would be back at dark 30. And other times, we would be shooting, recording, covering tournaments. We'd come back on a practice day and his boat would be in the driveway at 3. And I asked him one time, I'm like, what the heck, Dean? And he goes, dude, it's productivity and mental sanity. And it's not beneficial for me to beat my head against the wall, get upset, hate the fishery, have negative thoughts, have meltdowns. He's like, I'm not being productive at all. So once I reach that point, if I can't bring it back to equilibrium, he goes, I just get off the water. He goes, I don't have to worry about it. He goes, I'm not helping myself. He goes, but I'm not hurting myself. I'm not giving myself negative thoughts, energies about that fishery.
Right.
He goes, then other days, I feel like I'm being productive. I'm making good decisions. I'm learning. I've got good vibes. He goes, that's when you maximize. That's when you spend the 15-hour days on the water. That's when you cancel the dinner plans at the steakhouse and say, hey, I got to spend another couple hours out here.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I'm kind of weird that way. Like, okay, so not non-tournament scenario, clearly, please do at least
do a show things I hate about fishing.
Oh my gosh, we should do
we should do a segment once a month on that.
Yes, once a month we're going to do a segment on that. Oh my God, Matt, write that down.
You write it down. My notepad is, you seem way more organized than me. My notepad, I literally just find an empty sheet and then change it the next day.
Okay, hold on. Things I hate about fishing.
Fishing with the bobber says it looks like just thinking about that meltdown has taken Frank to a dark place.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was a lot going on.
Things I hate about fishing.
Yeah, there was a lot going on. I'm not going to get into the meltdown scenario because I don't want to trash anybody. But
no. But you did tell the story. I'm sure.
I'm 100%
Bass Turd fishing, Scott Turdo. I'm sure. I think he changed shifts, maybe. I think he's on a different shift now, work shift maybe. He probably knows what episode you went.
Probably. Look at that. I'm doing ice water instead of coffee this morning.
Really?
Yeah, I got up early. I got going in a big way, and I had way too much coffee.
You know what really grinds my gears?
The two old Muppets in the balcony.
You know what really does grind my gears though? So you know how there's some
lack of oil.
Yeah, that too. But that's a self-hate thing. There's no reason you should run out of oil. When you're loading your boat next to a guy, and there's a difference between power loading and over power loading. And there's that boil that makes it like a cauldron. And if you're on a tight ramp and you back down, and it's like a steep ramp or one of those where you have to be at, the right angle to get it on, or there's a wind. And the guy next to you decides, like, you're slightly ahead, but he decides to put his boat on the damn trailer at the exact same time as you, and then really and then it the prop wash washes your boat slightly to the side and you miss the bow connection, or you're a little bit up on the side of the boat because of the movement of the water from that dude next to you who's acting like he's in the freaking Monaco Grand Prix trying to load his boat in the outboard. That ticks me off too. Like, I always make sure, I hate loading a boat at the exact same, like power loading at the exact same time as someone else. I'm like, dude, like wait 5 seconds until I'm lined in and my bow hook is up there. You don't have to be over there going rrr, rrr, while my boat, the back end of my boat is sliding off the bunks.
Yeah, there's a whole nother episode of boat ramp etiquette that we could go down this rabbit hole for a long time. Or
the guy who ties up his boat
and then
on the only part of the dock that you don't have to climb over a railing to get on the boat, and then sits there until it's time for tournament blast off while everyone else basically kills themselves trying to get in to pick up their co-angler or partner, and just sits there with it tied up, just going, hey guys, how's it going? Not very good. It'd be better if you move 7 feet forward so we could all just idle up, pick our partners up and leave without my, partner having to climb a story and a half over a barbed wire fence to get in the boat because you blocked the only opening on the dock.
Oh yeah, dude. I have more pet peeves with pleasure boaters and not educated boat handlers at the ramps, because a lot of the ramps where I go to, you'll have guys, they're going to go, especially on Lake Erie, they're going to go walleye fishing. They pull up, they tie off right at the ramp, and they're sitting there, and you're like, dude, you're in the ramp. You know what I mean? Oh, waiting on my buddy. You're like, oh, okay, maybe he's going to park the car. So you have a little more patience because the guy's going to get his vehicle. Where's the dude? Oh, he's not here yet. Well, go float around then. You know what I mean? Don't block the ramp. Oh, he's not here yet, but he'll be here in a few. It's like, are you kidding me?
The only way I can understand it is you can tell there are times where there's a guy who's nervous with the boat, and he just wants to get to the dock and get the guy who probably backed him in and owns the boat back in that boat so they can get the hell out of there and he doesn't ruin anything. I'm okay with that. I understand that. But you can sense the nervous energy of someone who is in a boat that they do not understand how to operate.
Correct. But this dude is tied to the dock, waiting on someone to go fishing with him. It's his boat.
Yeah, no, get the hell away from the dock.
Yeah, and he's just sitting there. And he's in a place where I can't even get around him in front of him. You know what I mean? Where I could back the trailer down, get in front of him and put it on. No big deal. But he's not. He's in a place where I can't even get around him to have enough room to get out. And it's like...
And then also like the DNRs, like especially if there's a big ramp fee, especially if you're paying $5, $10, $20 and you pull up to the dock and there's either metal corners on the dock or a bracket that comes out with like bolts, and you're like, at what point in the design of this was there not one person like in a public dock installation where they were like, hey, this is designed to dock fiberglass boats. Maybe sharp metal is not ideal for it.
Yeah, or countersink the heads. Why are they sticking out this far? We have a lake by our house that has that. It's like they use through bolts on it.
Grand Lake did that at frickin' Wolf Creek. You're like, dude, like design use the dock where the poles are inside the dock to where this is literally designed for 300 boat tournaments. So let's put it super shallow so it's unusable if the lake comes up 4 feet. Oh, that was brilliant. And let's create docks that every 35 feet have metal brackets that come out in an octagon shaped fashion to where you can't even put two boats next to each other.
Right.
And they're designed to tie up bass boats for a freaking tournament in a horseshoe shape.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. And the metal things on the dock corners infuriate me to no end, because it's like, who in their right mind thought this was a good idea? I mean, it's literally like you're dragging your boat around a chisel bit.
Yeah, and equally as bad are the ramps where they're wooden and they didn't finish them or use water resistance, so you go to grab the dock to stabilize your boat to get the rope, and I mean, it's just Splinter City. And not the like little wood splinters. You're talking like the 5 and 6 inch wood splinters that go straight through your finger. You're moving with the boat. I mean, it's like, now you've got your hand like this. You look, there's nowhere to grab.
We have gone down yet another rabbit hole. There's so many things we could go.
Am I wrong on either of those though?
No, my pet peeve is the metal corners on the docks.
Yeah.
Especially, and then it's like this. They're just high enough off the water where the front of your boat won't go under them, but the back of your boat will go right under it.
Yeah.
It's like, are you kidding me? It's like you couldn't design it more poorly. You know,
and
what
it seems like it's an epidemic. I mean, I travel around the country, Frank, and it seems very, I mean, it's probably 50% of the time you pull up to a dock, it's like, oh, well, that would total it, that would total it, and that would total it. Very rarely do you pull up to a dock where you're like, oh, this is a well-made structure.
Oh, yeah, or smartly crafted with no sharp metal objects or bolts sticking out of it. It's the bolts. There's a dock at this lake, but at home, it's called the lake's West Branch, and there's bolts that stick out of it where the two docks meet, because it's long, so they join them together. And there's bolts that stick out of it, and it's high enough where the front of your bass boat won't get it, but the back of your bass boat, you know how they're on a little angle.
Yep.
The back will get it every time. Can't put a boat there and go park your truck because the speed zone is right in front of it. And so there are people water skiing and jet skiing around it, and literally your boat's just going like this up and down, and it's just getting railed by them bolts every time. Yeah. It's like, and you can't beach the boat there because it's all rock. They put big boulders all around everything.
I'll end it on this one, and this one's the one that causes the most meltdowns. I have approximately 6 to 8 pair of cutting devices in my boat at all times, whether they're nippers, scissors, cutters, whatever.
Yeah, that's smart.
It's smart because I will have more meltdowns over this. I will have 6 pair of scissors lined up at 6 in the morning. By 2 p.m., there is not a pair of scissors to be found in the damn boat. And if there is, I'll make my, I'll like cut my leader off, sitting, not moving. Then I'll tie my bait on, and I'll go to trim the tag end of my bait. And for the life of me, cannot find the scissors that I literally had just used to cut the main line off, and had not stood up since then. And end up having, I end up in the bottom of compartments that I haven't been in a month and a half, seeing if those scissors somehow managed in that. The ability for a pair of scissors to disappear in a bass boat at an inopportune time is something that I cannot even wrap my brain around.
Yeah, so I have the same pet peeve. So I have a little like plastic holder inside one compartment, and that's where my scissors and my super glue are at all times. And when I'm done with them, they go right back there. They never lay on my deck. Hey, sometimes you just got to air it out, guys. I mean, that's just the way it is. Yeah.
We'll just keep going if we don't end it, Frank. And it is 4th of July weekend. I know you got a lot to do to get ready for the family.
That is so funny.
You want to give away a impromptu $50 lurenet.com gift card to a random viewer and listener that made a comment today that didn't even expect it but stayed with us until the very end of the show?
Yes, do it. Let's do it. All
right, I'm randomly going through the comments from 8:24 a.m. all the way through 9:56 a.m. and I'm just scrolling back and forth. No one expected this. This is just random interaction of the show that we're going to do. At any point in time, you tell me to stop, and I will stop, and whoever it lands on.
Stop.
Jacob Collins.
Okay.
Oh, great. Of course, it's the one comment that I can't show. It was it was after we played me catching that 10-pounder, and his comment was, "That's how Matt's going to sound on his honeymoon." That's the comment that it stopped on. I can't help it.
All right.
It was a legitimate comment.
Okay, so Jacob, you're going to get a code for your $50 gift card.
First of all, what he needs to do is he needs to send an email to Matt at BassZone, BASSZONE.com. Says and Jacob Collins, $50 LureNet gift card winner. July 3rd show, and then I will give your email to Frank, and then he will email you directly,
or I'll just
send
Matt
it to
code, and Matt will send you the code. Either way, you're going to get a code for $50. Compliments of LureNet. You want to give another one out?
You have another one to give out?
Let's give them out. We're going to be like Oprah, whatever. And there's one for you, and one for you. Everyone gets one. All right, I just randomly say stop.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling. Right. See, look at how I'm scrolling. I'm not even looking.
Stop.
That was my comment. The only comment when Rich gave us $2 and said, "Have a safe 4th of July." I said, "Thanks, Rich." So we got to do it again.
All right, stop.
That was Jeff Brazil.
What?
Yeah.
All right. What comment did he make?
It actually went to the end, and he just said Oprah. LOL, LOL.
All right. Okay. $2 $50 gift cards coming right up, boys.
I know. Boy, the comments really picked up once we started giving stuff away, Frank. It's weird how that works out.
Yeah, you know what? We're going to do this again.
Okay.
Jacob, you definitely email Matt. Brazil, I'll take care of you. I have your contact info. And as soon as I get the numbers from LureNet, I will send them off.
So the title for this show is Getting Dialed In and What Really Grinds Our Gears.
Perfect.
Do you think that's everybody, or do you think we're...
No.
I don't know. No, I feel like I didn't want to turn into a bitch and moan session, but like, it's first world problems. We're on a bass boat in America with the freedom to do what we want and the time and money to go out and try to catch a bass. There should be nothing that we aren't thankful for.
Correct.
Compared to what is going on in a lot of other people in our country, in our city, less than 10 miles from you. There's a lot of people that would love to be in our shoes as far as just being able to do what you love, regardless of that is, with something that you've worked your hard-earned money for, that you own on a public body of water that you can access. And there really is no room for griping, bitching, moaning, anything but being thankful.
Right. But what I don't think it's bitching and griping more than it is just frustration. I think it's frustration. And there was a comment that I saw. The guy said the heat really makes it come to the forefront. Yeah, the hotter it is, the faster my meltdowns come. Because it's too uncomfortable to do things, and when you're leaning over trying to pull the rod out of your rod locker and you're sweating on all your reels, and it's just like madness. So yeah, it's madness.
It's passion.
It's passion.
Oh, I think we were also going to give away a USA Bass hat this week, weren't we? Yeah, we were. Remember last week we said we were? Dennis Miller did.
July.
All right, hold on. I got to get it.
All right, here we go. Now I'm going to have to write another thing down. Thanks, Matt.
I think I'm just going to give this to Courtney with an address and say, "Can you make sure this gets in the mail?"
Perfect.
Because at least
they'll know they got it.
I still have some line for the Mountain Duo over there. Here it is right here. USA Bass hat.
Perfect.
Courtesy of USA Bass. Look at that hat. It's
I know.
phenomenal. Got the old stars and stripes on the back.
Is this going to be another random?
Yeah. Let me get to the top here.
Okay, let me know when you're at the top.
4 down, 4 up, 5 down, 4 up. All right, anytime.
Stop.
I feel like Jeff has won a lot.
Who is it?
Jeff Brazil.
Again?
Yeah.
I mean, you Brazil, you're not getting the hat. You already won today.
Listen, I know Jeff. We can hook Jeff up, but let's give another hat to someone else then.
All right.
Not named Jeff.
You can't win 2 in the same.
But I also am not a believer of make sure you spread the wealth. If it landed on Jeff, it landed on Jeff. So we're getting Jeff a hat. We're just going to do another one.
All right, let's do it.
You know what I mean? Like, that's
agree.
BS. Like, if a guy wins 9 in a row and then he wins 10, then give him the 10th thing. It's not like, oh, you already won too much. No, screw that. Like, you get it. You get what you land on. But okay, go ahead.
All right. Stop.
Justin Welch.
Justin, dude, bass hat.
Yeah. There you go. Well, look at Justin's profile pic.
Yeah.
Shoot me your address, Justin.
That's outstanding.
BTL merch, we're working on that. I need to make a call there. We've got the structural element t-shirt with Frank Scalish. It's going to be in that t-shirt that you're wearing now, which is a Hanes, like it's not Hanes, it's a heavy tee.
Yeah,
it's like true fit.
And the collar holds up nice. It doesn't get all wavy, which is good.
Yep. And then the limited to 100 Frank Scalish patch hat with the
4-color.
Yeah, it's got the lily pad scene with your signature on the patch. There's only 100 of those. There's really only 95 of those. There's probably only 90 going to be available because I'm probably going to get 5 and you're going to get 5.
Yeah, I'm going to find. I have the illustration somewhere. Of course, I get dizzy when I scroll too fast like this.
And then just the standard BTL stuff as well. BTL shirt, and that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, and the one shirt, the smallmouth, or is it a largemouth?
Yeah, the black shirt with the smallmouth.
Yeah, black shirt with the smallmouth on it.
Yeah, I'm getting there. Do I have to show this thing?
I mean, it'd be handy if you could find it.
It will. I have like 5 million pics. 5 million.
So do I.
And most of mine, unfortunately, are painted lures. A lot of them are bass and crappie.
All mine are like jig heads, minnows,
100%
fish picks.
Yeah, that's how mine is.
Oh, I did frog legs last night. That's my last photo. In the last photo is that from last night.
Oh, nice. So we were talking about the bass going around the trolling motor. This is totally digressing, but I did cornhole boards, and I painted the largemouth going around.
Oh, that's filthy.
On my thing.
That's badass.
And then I got another one of a smallmouth jumping.
Yeah, that's freaking cool.
Those are my cornhole boards. Anyway, I got to find this bass, which I know I should be close to. Here it is. Got her.
Yeah, so that is like in a patch hat form, which actually looks really cool. And then we added Frank's signature on the bottom of it.
So there we have it.
And then that's the structural element. Hold on.
Yeah, do I have it here?
No, I got it right here. Whoa, it keeps going different ways. Now it's anyway, there it is, and it's got
topographical lines
that go through it, and that's gonna be a really cool t-shirt.
So yeah, so dang.
I saw a picture of the hat. I sent it to you, did?
I don't have the hat picture, but I have the original.
Oh, you know what? It might not be that. I think we went with this instead.
No, it was the color one, I thought.
Are you sure?
I'm 100% sure.
Because I think we went with this maybe, which is equally as badass.
I don't know.
That looks pretty good.
Yeah, that looks cool, but I think we went with the other.
Okay.
But who knows? We'll find out. Hey, whatever it is,
It's gonna be some sort of signature series hat.
It's gonna be something. That is so funny.
I'm not sure.
We'll figure it out. It's not important.
I guess I could make a call and actually find out.
Yeah. So our momentum's slipping, Matt. Our momentum on the show is slowly going.
That's Frank saying he's off of his routine because we went 35 minutes over an hour. I get the cue, Frank. Frank, you know what really grinds my gears? When Matt won't end the damn show. All right, this has been another edition of Day 4 with the man Frank Scalish. Same place, same time next week. We'll talk to everyone then. See ya.